Welcome to Corx, an exciting strategy board game for 2 to 4 players, aged 8 to 108, give or take a couple of years. Getting started. To begin the game, each player places 6 corks on their baseline. Black, red, yellow, and green are all on baseline pieces, which are these dots along the line going across the bottom of each territory. To find out who goes first, players roll the dice. The highest roller goes first, followed by the person to their left. How to move. To move, the player rolls the dice and moves 1 cork for each die. For example, if a 2 and 4 are rolled, 1 cork moves 2 and the other moves 4. I roll the dice. I'm black. I have to move 1 cork 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. I have to move another cork 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll notice that I was able to go anywhere where the dots are connected. I could go zigzag, frontwards, backwards. I could go in any direction I wanted as long as the line connected the dots. However, corks cannot jump over each other or touch the same space twice on the same move. So I cannot go 1, 2 or 1, 2, 3. It has to be to a separate spot each time. 1, 2, 3. If a player rolls a 3 on the die, they're allowed to roll that die again after they've moved their corks for the original roll. So I have a 5 and a 3. I have to move my 5 or 3. I'm going to move 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to move my 3. 1, 2, 3. I get to roll again on the 3. 2. 1, 2. For as long as a player rolls a 3, they're allowed to keep moving and can use any of their corks to make those moves. When a player only has 1 cork left, they still roll both dice, but they must choose which one to use. If I only had 1 cork on the board, it's my turn. I roll the dice. I have a 1 and a 2. I have to decide, do I want to use the 1 or the 2? In this case, I'll use the 1. When a cork leaves the player's territory, it cannot go back, and likewise, when a cork enters an opponent's territory, it cannot leave. The territory is defined by the thick black octagon. Once you reach the octagon, you've left your territory. So if I go 1, 2, 3, I've left my territory, I cannot return to it. If I enter into another player's territory by crossing over the octagon, 1, 2, 3, I cannot leave it. So once you leave your territory, you cannot return. Once you enter another territory, you cannot leave it. It's also important to note that a player cannot enter a territory that is not used by a player. Right now, we're set up for 4-player corks. If this were set up for 3-player corks with no green, then no one can enter this territory. If it's 2-player corks with only yellow and black, then no one could enter into this territory. The red would be off the board. Capturing corks. To capture an opponent's cork, a player must land one of his corks on it. Normally, when a cork is captured, both corks are taken off the board. If red is positioned here, and I have a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I capture red, but we both come off the board and are placed upside down. We're placed upside down because the top of the cork reveals the point value at the end of the game, and you don't want players to know how many points you've accumulated. The exception to taking corks off the board, of sacrificing your own cork, is if you occupy center space. So if I have 1 black on center space, and I'm trying to capture red with a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I now have extra powers. I can capture red, and my cork stays on the board. Red comes off the board in front of my territory. The advantage to me is that at the end of the game, I will have 2 points for capturing this cork, but also 1 point for having a cork still on the board when the game is over. If a player wants to capture a cork that's on center space, they need a 1 to do that. They need to position themselves at one of the 4 spaces that are adjacent to the center space, which is right here, and then they need a 1 on a roll of the die to capture the person on center space. When that happens, both corks come off the board and go blocks. The main way a player can defend his or her cork is by creating a block, which is formed by 2 corks on adjacent spaces. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. These 2 corks are on adjacent spaces and they form a block. If I had 3 corks connected, it would not be a block. In any configuration, 3 corks next to each other in a straight line is not a block. 3 corks in a crooked line is not a block. Only 2 corks next to each other on any configuration connected by a line represents a block. Any cork that's on a baseline is not protected by a block, and any cork on center space is not protected by a block. This is a block. This cork is protected, but because this cork is on center space, it is not protected. This is a block, but the cork on the baseline is not protected. This cork is. The value of the protection is that someone cannot capture you if you're in a block. If yellow has a move of 2, 1, 2, they cannot capture that cork because it's in a block. If yellow is here and has a 1, which is the number you need to take someone off of center space, they can capture the cork on center because every cork on center space or baseline is always vulnerable to capture. How to win the game. The game ends when either one of the players has no corks remaining on the board or when one player captures the base of another. A player must land on a cork on another's baseline before the base can be captured, such as if I have a roll of 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm on the baseline, but I haven't yet captured the base. I now need a move of 1 on the subsequent turn or move in order to capture the base, and the game is over. The winner of the game is determined by adding up points. Whoever captures the base gets 10 points. Whoever is sitting on center space at the time the game ends gets 5 points. 2 points are awarded for each cork that is captured. The player black has captured 1 red cork, so 2 points are given for that. And a player gets 1 point for each cork that is still on the board. So black would have 1, 2, 3 points for corks still on the board that do not include the center space or the baseline. Thank you for your interest in corks. We hope you enjoy playing this fun and exciting game. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to call the Corx hotline at 1-413-773-1649 any time of night or day. An attendant will be prepared to answer your questions. I may be sleeping at that time, but that's okay. I'll still take your call.